Time takes a toll on everyone, they say. Time is merciless, it won't wait for us to change. Time, I am stressing out, I can't figure out what to say. Oh, time, just give us time. Time, looking back on pictures, and I find it hard to see you and myself in places where we used.
Hello, viewers. Good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from here at the UNN TV. My name is Hanifa. I am a team member here at the UNN, and I'll be hosting a new show called Your Rights and the Law here at the UNN TV. We intend for this show to run twice a week if all goes as planned, of course. Well, at the UNN, we are not the most knowledgeable or the most educated individuals, but we are here to share the little knowledge and the little information we have with you, our viewers. And we also learn from you, our viewers, because it is believed that in a democratic society, an informed citizen is an active citizen. And that successful democracies around the world depend on the active participation of its informed citizens. This aligns well with our aim here at the UNN, that is, to keep you informed to enable you become an active citizen of Uganda. The topic today is about civic education. Well, we start with what is civic education? Civic education is the study of the rights and obligations of citizens in a society. Civic education is more about empowering citizens to be active, and it relates to behaviors affecting other citizens, particularly in the context of urban development. Civic education is not a new thing in Uganda, interestingly. The history of civic education dates back to the colonial days. Civic education is also provided for in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. The Constitution provides for the creation and nurturing of democratic society in which all citizens have the right to participate in the affairs of their government. Civic education enhances the people's competence and opportunity to participate meaningfully and responsibly in self-governance. Article 30 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda provides for the right to education, where all citizens in Uganda have a right to education. All citizens in Uganda. Further, Article 30, Part 2 provides that every Ugandan has a right to participate in peaceful activities to influence the policies of the government through civic organizations. On the other hand, democracy means a system of governance where the power rests within the people. However, in Uganda, under the Museveni regime, or the dictatorial regime, civic education, which was commonly known as civics or political education, was intentionally scrapped off the Ugandan syllabuses, both in schools and tertiary institutions. Because of this, Ugandan citizens have been deliberately left uninformed when it comes to education of their government, democracy, and political leaders. This has created very inactive citizens simply because they are not informed. So, what is the purpose of civic education anyways? The main aim of civic education is to empower citizens to understand the political environment so that you, the citizen, can participate in democratic processes of your country. This is why civic education is sometimes referred to as democracy education. One basic component of civic education is it provides citizens with knowledge, such as knowledge on your rights as Ugandan citizens, and also knowledge of rights of an ordinary Ugandan. Civic education further teaches you, the ordinary Ugandan, about the roles and functions of the government institutions and the Ugandan parliament. Remember, knowledge empowers citizens to know and claim their rights and to demand the good governance from their elected leaders. Through civic education, you learn what you can do to support democracy in your country as it is stipulated in the Ugandan Constitution. So, why is civic education fundamental? The overall aim of civic education is to promote active citizens and responsible citizens and successful democracies. Like I mentioned earlier, this is why this kind of education was intentionally denied to Ugandans by the dictatorial regime. Successful democracies depend on you and me, the citizen, in a way that we can check in the government and our elected leaders. By checking in government and leaders, you, the citizen, you are holding your leaders accountable and demand them to fulfill their promises. As an informed citizen of Uganda, where things have gone wrong and leaders are not doing what they have promised and what they are supposed to do, because you are now informed, you are able to mobilize and educate others on what leaders are supposed to be doing. And also demand elected leaders to perform. Why is your participation important, and what are democratic responsibilities? As a responsible citizen who is an active citizen, you have the responsibility to respect and defend the laws and the constitutional values of Uganda. Citizen participation is very important feature in any functioning democracy. Your participation as an active citizen. The more knowledge you gain, the more power you have to claim your constitutional rights. It is your responsibility to vote for the leaders, and you, the Ugandan citizen, did this in the just concluded elections. Now this is up to us to exercise our constitutional rights and demand our victory. Remember, you are not a spectator. As I conclude, I will recap on what we have shared. Civic education further teaches you, the ordinary Ugandan, about the roles and functions of the government institutions and the Ugandan parliament. Remember, Knowledge empowers citizens to know and claim their rights and to demand good governance from elected leaders. Through civic education, you learn what you can do to support democracy in your country as stipulated in the Ugandan Constitution. So, why is civic education fundamental? The overall aim of civic education is to promote active and responsible citizens in successful democracies. Like I mentioned earlier, this is why this kind of education was deliberately scrapped off the Ugandan syllabuses by the dictatorial regime. Successful democracies depend on you and me, the citizen, in a way that we can check in the government and also check in our elected leaders. By checking in the governments and leaders, you, the citizen, you are holding your leaders accountable and demanding them to fulfill their promises. As an informed citizen of Uganda, where things have gone wrong and leaders are not doing what they have promised and they are supposed to do, because you are now an informed citizen, you are able to mobilize and educate others on what leaders are supposed to do, and also demand elected leaders to perform. Why is your participation important and your democratic rights? As a responsible citizen who is an active citizen, you have a responsibility to respect and defend the laws and the constitutional values of Uganda. Citizen participation is a very important feature in a functioning democracy. Uganda needs active participation as a citizen. The more knowledge you gain, the more power you have to claim your constitutional rights. It's your responsibility to vote for your leaders, and you, the Ugandan citizen, did this in the just concluded elections. Now it is up to us to exercise our constitutional right and demand our victory. Remember, we are not spectators. As I conclude, we'll recap on what I have shared earlier, that what is civic education is about, that is about knowledge, what democracy means in the constitution, and that knowledge is power, and that if we are all aware of the power we hold, we can use it to a collective benefit. For example, if you knew of your constitutional rights as a Ugandan citizen, like rights to basic education, you could be able to demand for better schools for all, because this is your constitutional right. The more knowledge you gain as a citizen, the more power you have to claim your constitutional granted rights to improve your life situation. As Ugandans, we have the power to change the political practices, political leaders, and political decisions for the benefit of all Ugandans. Here at the UNN, we would like to inspire you, the citizen of Uganda, to play your active role as a defender of the democratic values, inclusive prosperity, and justice. Once again, thank you for watching and for sharing this information. You can leave your comments in the comment section below and provide feedback on how we can improve or what you would like to learn more about. You can email us or contact us through hello@getunn.com or just for your contribution. Until next time, have a great evening, a good morning, or a good afternoon. Once again, my name is Hanifa. See ya. Ciao. Good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from. Thank you for coming back to the UNN TV, and thank you for the feedback that you have given from my previous episodes. Once again, my name is Hanifa, and I'm here with another episode of your Rights and the Law show here at the UNN TV. In today's episode, I'll be talking about the Constitution. This actually makes me question, has anyone here ever actually had a look at the Constitution or this document? Well, I have been lucky or fortunate enough that I have actually read both the Constitution of Uganda and the Constitution of the country that I'm calling home for now. Many years ago, while I was still a law student, I didn't like constitutional law. I found it to be very boring and very old. By then, I hadn't realized that this old document, all the laws in this country revolved around this old document, and that this same document was the most supreme law of this land. And like we have always said, we are not the most educated or the most knowledgeable individuals here at the UNN, but we are here to share the little knowledge we have with you, our viewers, with the goal of keeping you informed to become active citizens. So, what is the Constitution? To answer this question, I will first explore why we need a constitution, and I will not bore you with all the legalities, but rather I'll give you the basic the basic things that you need to know. Before I define what a constitution, it is better we first explore the fundamental things that we need as human beings. It doesn't matter your socio-economic status, but as long as a human being, you need things such as a voice in decisions that affect our lives, material well-being such as food, shelter and education, security and protection from violence and discrimination, and recognition and respect as individuals and as communities. To help meet these needs, people create governments and delegate powers to them to exercise for the common good of the society. The problem, though, is governments will need power to perform their functions, and history tells us again and again that power without limits leads to corruption, leads to dictatorship and oppression. Free, fair and regular elections might ensure good government, where elections allow people to select who they want in power and vote out those who perform badly. However, basic rules are needed to monitor how this power is used. Those elected still have to protect your rights and promote your interests rather than using power for their own benefit. Just like any sport where there are rules and there is a referee, in a democratic society, there must be rules by which all players must abound. And these rules are provided for only in the Constitution. The Constitution is a law and is not just an ordinary law. The Constitution is a supreme law of a country that establishes, organizes and empowers the government and determines how the other laws in a country are made and implemented. The Constitution is very difficult to change than any other laws of a country, so that those in power do not make up the rules as they wish. Just like any sport where it wouldn't be fair if the winning team changes the rules, in a democratic country, it is not fair when those in power can change the rules as they wish. The Constitution harnesses the energy and power of the government, ensuring that the people control the reins. This explains why people who are establishing a new and fairer society, one of the first things they do is to write a new constitution. For in Uganda's case, when the ruling regime came into power, a new constitution was drafted and enacted in 1995 to establish rules for using power. Like any other military coup that seizes power, the Museveni regime did away with the old constitution until 1995 when a new one was enacted. Like any other dictator in the world, the Ugandan constitution has been amended tremendously to favor the current ruler. For example, there has been age limit amendment on the constitution and many others, where he has basically He basically did not want an inconvenient limits on his ability to rule for life and by force. Why is the Constitution important? The Constitution organizes and constrains power. This the Constitution does in various ways, which include dividing power between different political institutions, for example, sharing functions between the president and the vice president, or between different levels of the government, that is, national level and the local level. The Constitution defines the powers of these institutions and regulates the relationship between them. It also ensures that power is rotated or is changed to give a chance to people to choose someone else in each election. In Uganda, 6 times in a row, just the one person. This is intended that one party, person, or institution cannot accumulate too much power or stay in power for far too long. It is important to maintain strict separation between the political institutions on one hand, such as the elected parliament and the elected government, and on the other hand, permanent neutral institutions such as the courts, the military, the police, and the civil service. The Constitution also constrained power by outlining what the government must and must not do. For example, a set of constitutional rights sets out that you cannot be tortured, cannot be imprisoned without due cause, and that your freedom of speech cannot be infringed on. The Constitution further directs the government to provide for basic human needs such as education, healthcare, sanitation, and housing. The Constitution, interestingly, does not protect only the majority. There are special provisions that protect the minority and marginalized groups for their security, their protection in the government, and their culture. Our Constitution also provides for nation-building function. It embodies national unity and to reflect and declare the identity of the nation and its people, where it announces to the citizens, to the government itself, and the outside world what our nation is, what it stands for, where it has come, and what its vision for the future. Well, a good constitution is one step to a peaceful, prosperous, and a democratic society. Its fundamental aim is to set out the rules by which the government should govern. It ensures that the democratic aspirations the Constitution cannot build a road, school a child, or even provide citizens with drinking water or heal the sick. Yet the Constitution has a profound effect on how well our country functions, and as a result, it has an effect on the quality of the lives of our citizens. A state or the government needs a powerful engine to do the things that the citizens needed it to do. This power has to be under control though. Thus, a good constitution, if Uganda had one, would keep the power of the government under public control by putting the people in the driver's seat, ensuring that the government is responsible and represents the ordinary citizen. Uganda has a wealth of problems, sorry to speak. There is unemployment. Opportunities are very few. Young people are angry. People live in fear. There is garbage on the streets. Roads are full of potholes. No electricity in some parts of the country. Schools are crowded, and in some instances, education in Uganda is made for the few. The courts and the administration are corrupt, and if you do not have a connection or money for a bribe, you will always be at the back of the line. Why is it so? This is so because Uganda is a poor country actually. We are all aware of all the natural resources we have as a country. However, those in charge and who are well connected and close to power have plenty of money. They feast while the rest of Ugandans go hungry. These few people run Uganda for their own personal benefits and not for the benefit of all the people. And at the head of the table sits the president, the old man, who has been in charge for as long as any one of us can remember. He has got the country exactly where he wants it to be, that is, in his pocket and under his heel. Elections in Uganda are a farce, and anyone who dares to speak out ends up dead or ends up in jail. Uganda's whole system is broken, and one wonders where it all went wrong. The problem started with the limitless powers of the president and his allies, where the presidency or his presidency overshadows the country. There is no limit on the number of times this old man can be elected, and under his regime, the parliament has no real power, the judiciary has no independence whatsoever. Nothing has stopped this dictator from appointing his own son as head of army, wife as Minister of Education, and other family members and allies in government positions, or even handing out government contracts to friends and families. This is so because our constitution is too weak to protect its people, and the constitution provides no real constraint to the president's abuse of power. Instead of empowering you, the Ugandan person, the constitution is simply suppressing you. The government has become your master instead of the government being your servant. Until you rise up, your hopes of justice, dignity, equality, and rights will not be realized until we rise up and fight for all of this. For God and my country, thank you for watching once again. And if you have any suggestions, any comments, please leave in the comment sections below, or you can as well email us at hello@getunn.com. Until once again, thank you very much for watching. Stay well, stay blessed, stay safe. Bye for now. Good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from. For those of you who are new here, my name is Hanifa, and I'm here yet with another episode of your Rights and the Law show here at the UNN TV. Please do not forget to share this video, and thank you for sharing. Please share with people you think that may benefit or might be interested in this video. Thank you for sharing. I truly hope, and I really hope that you are all keeping safe. It is a very crazy world we are living in. Lots of stuff is happening. COVID has for sure changed our lives for both the good and the bad. It is okay actually to pause life when you really have to, and take care of yourself and the things that really matter. Your mental well-being, and if possible, taking care of those around you and the people you care for. This pandemic has caused more mental health problems, and it is very okay to seek professional help. Please do not feel shy. Seek help if you have to. News coming from Uganda in regards to COVID is not so good. My heart as a parent really broke down when I saw images of children stranded on the streets waiting for transport to take them back after this very unplanned lockdown. This is so heartbreaking to see. I hope these children arrived home safe wherever they were traveling to. Thank you, by the way, for the feedback you have provided from my previous videos. And to answer just a few questions, especially one about the Constitution, I personally would say a new Constitution will have to be drafted to lift on the powers of the president, and also draft laws that protect the country as a whole, not just the one particular individual.
Another feedback was how my show is short. Well, truly speaking, it is hard to go for a long time. What would I be talking about? I really don't know. I personally am not the best public speaker, but I'm trying my best. I am truly trying my best. I'm still a work in progress, and as the show progresses, I might be able to record for longer. Thank you for the feedback, and thank you for sharing the video. And like we all know here, we're not the most knowledgeable or the most educated individuals, but we are here to share the little knowledge we have with you, our viewers, to keep you informed, to enable you become, active citizens. Moving on, we have all heard about the term leadership and servant leadership nearly every day, but have you ever actually tried to understand what these concepts mean, especially to you, the ordinary Ugandan, and how decisions made by your leaders, your elected leaders, impact your life and lives of generations to come? In today's episode, I will try to break down the term leadership and servant leadership, specifically in governance. I will focus mainly on servant leadership in a democratic society, Uganda being one, and explore the power of servant leadership. I intend that by the end of this episode that you are able to reflect on your elected leader or yourself as a leader and truly question that, are you that leader the world at large considers a servant leader or a good leader? So I will begin with, there have been numerous rulers throughout history who have led people, but these rulers were very inhumane and very destructive. They have committed the unthinkable crimes. Some turned into very horrible rulers. But does this still make them leaders? I personally believe that a leader is someone who does more than just lead people. That a leader is someone who can see how things can be improved and one who rallies people to move towards that better vision. What is leadership? As there is no specific definition of leadership, I will try to answer this, that leadership is the act of motivating a group of people to act towards achieving that common goal. It is a traditional way where one directs a government or an organization in a way that makes it more cohesive and more coherent. For many people, becoming a leader is a lifelong journey that involves embracing and, observing new skills and methodologies at every turn of their life. And one such methodology is the concept of servant leadership. So, what is servant leadership? This is a concept, this approach of servant leadership was first coined by someone called Robert Greenleaf in his essay titled Servant Leadership in 1970. And this concept has been used by people, organizations, and governments around the world for quite some time. In his essay, Greenleaf argues that servant leadership is where a leader serves all the people following him or her, not just a few people, but all the people following this person. That a leader is a servant first who focuses on the needs of others, especially the needs of those following him or her, before they consider their own needs. Servant leadership is not just a leadership style or technique, but it is a way of behaving that leaders should adopt. This leadership approach truly complements, the democratic leadership styles. Greenleaf, in his essay, he outlines 10 principles of servant leadership, and he suggests that any leader who carries themselves as a servant leader, they should demonstrate these principles. The first principle was is listening, where a servant leader is intentional with purpose. They are able to pause so that they can respond rather than react. When they listen to their supporters with intent, they are able to serve them and also build trust. For example, if your leader paused and when you are interacting with them, they are able to listen to what you are saying to them with purpose of understanding, and so that they can respond, effectively, not just like listening for, then that a servant leader should be empathetic. This is where servant leaders strive to understand and empathize with others. Where a leader is able to put their viewpoint aside temporarily, value others' perspectives, and also approach situations with a very open mind. The other principles are healing, where healing brings about transformation and integration. Then we have the principle of awareness. There is persuasion, conceptualization, foresight, stewardship, principles of servant leadership. Why should your elected leader demonstrate these principles, and how does this affect you, the ordinary citizen? Your leader should demonstrate these principles simply because a servant leader encourages and gives his or her supporters a chance to think and decide for themselves. For example, you as the ordinary citizen in your little community or in your community, you want something or you need something, you present this to your leader, who then escalates an action. Furthermore, great leadership starts with self-leadership, and a servant leader servant leadership creates the rarest commodity, which is leadership without ego. We all know of those Ugandan leaders who actually have a super ego, not so? And I know you can actually name some of these people. More so, servant leadership is important because a servant leader leads from the heart so as to inspire others. Servant leadership doesn't lead for or because of money, but they lead from the heart. So in order for a servant leader to experiment this, they have to take big risks. While exploring the risks, they are able to create an environment of psychological safety. This means that a servant leader is able to allow their supporters or their team to give them feedback, and this can be both negative and positive feedback. Yes, that you are able to give feedback to your elected leader without you being attacked or being called a non-supporter. When a leader accepts feedback, they are understanding the other point of view, and also this enables some of their supporters to take risks because the supporters know that their leader will support them. I'm not talking about, the evil risk, but the risks such as speaking up, condemning evil, and so on and so forth. Indeed, psychological safety is absolutely critical because it's critical because it creates a safe environment that allows you as a servant leader to feel and learn as well. Unfortunately, feedback is sometimes very hard to accept by some leaders because some of these leaders think that they are strong and they're the best leaders the world has ever had. This kind of thinking, has led or has driven our country into a very, very bad state. We don't know, we shall get out of this bad state, but this kind of egoistic thinking has led us to a very bad state. Being able to accept feedback, as a servant leader, you are able to change and also influence others, supporters to follow you. I personally believe this demonstrates leading from the heart. Is this the leader you elected, or is this the kind of leader you are? One who leads from the heart? To conclude, in everyday lives, we are all leaders in some kind of way actually. be it in the families, in the organization we work for, or in the communities we live in. But the question is, what kind of leader are you? Or what kind of leader is your elected leader? Are you that kind of leader, or one who leads with power or fear? Or are you a leader who is open-minded, one who leads from the heart, and one who is not influenced by money, power, or fame? Here at the UNN, we would like to inspire you, the citizen of Uganda, to play an active role as a defender of democratic values, inclusive prosperity, and justice. So as you sit back, before I end this video, as you go back, you think back and say, are we really having any servant leaders? Because I've seen leaders in Uganda where we go on to say, my elected leader, or where leaders are actually saying, I'm going into, say, for example, into the parliament because I have to buy I need this money to go into the parliament because I have my personal needs. They have forgotten really the reasons as to why you elected them into power, and they have forgotten truly believing that they are supposed to serve you first before they even think about taking my mom abroad for medical bills, for medical care, taking my family to wherever X location, or serving this. They're supposed to be representing you. They are supposed to be serving you. But it is very, very unfortunate. It's very heartbreaking that leaders in Uganda are not doing this. But hello viewers, good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from. My name is Hanifa, for all of you who are new here, and I am here yet with another episode of your Rights and the Law show here at the UNN TV. Thank you for always coming back, and thank you for always watching. Plus, thank you for always sharing this video with anyone who you think might be interested in this video or might benefit from this information being shared. I truly feel for, or my heart breaks for people who are down there in Uganda during this unplanned, very chaotic second lockdown, with no permanent solutions in place. The government has completely done nothing, literally nothing, to try to contain the virus. Or Uganda had a full year actually. There was that all kind of space to prepare in case there is a second spread, in case, we had a full year, but the government did nothing. The stupid government officials and all they did was eat all the monies which were donated and monies which were borrowed. And then look where we are. The ordinary person, the ordinary citizen, how are they going to survive during this second lockdown? I truly don't know how heartless these people can get, But the good thing is the virus does not discriminate. It doesn't say you are rich, you are a government official, or you are an ordinary citizen. it will get you, and then you also still have to suffer that there is no beds, there is no oxygen. But for anyone out there in Uganda, we have you in our prayers. Actually, where I am right now, we are coming out of our 4th lockdown, but the government here has done everything necessary to try contain the virus. And also the government has this saying, we are in this together. So you feel that like there's gonna be support. Stay at home, we're gonna give you support. Don't get me wrong, or don't ask me questions like you are in a developed country. Yes, indeed I am in a developed country. However, what stops our countries from being developed? It's not written anywhere, that Uganda is going to be an underdeveloped country, but because our leaders are so stupid, they are so heartless, and they are very selfish, that we are going to be, in this kind of hopeless situations as developing countries. So this is really, it hurts actually. I should say that's the right thing, it hurts. But wherever you are, you are on this on your own. Stay safe, sanitize, wear your face mask, and do all things necessary to protect yourself. So moving on, many years ago, as I was going through high school, I was fortunate enough to do my office practice with one of these very incredible lawyers. I was interested in the law, and I went to do my office practice with this lawyer who was a very down to earth, very someone who was always giving back to the community, in a sense that they were running a free women's legal clinic where they were helping women, specifically women, with all their legal issues, say divorce, property settlement, domestic violence, and lots of other legal problems. I found this to be very fascinating. So one time I was having a conversation with this lawyer, and I asked them, what draws them to, step away from the very busy legal schedule, like every second Wednesday, to come and do this pro bono or free legal services to women. So this lawyer mentioned that for every woman you help, you're helping lots of women behind this woman, lots of people behind this woman. You will see her as just the one person, but there are lots of people who are benefiting from the legal services they are getting. This really resonated so much with me, and I promised myself that one time, if I ever went back to law school, or if I ever went to law school, I will be practicing human rights law, or I'll study about human rights law. But life happened, and I ventured into a very different, side of the law. That brings us to today's show, which is human rights. So by now we know about today's topic, which is going to be about human rights. So we shall be exploring what human rights are. Are they really human rights in Uganda? How are they protected? What's the government or those in power doing to protect human rights, and so on and so forth. So to start with, human rights have been constantly evolving throughout human history. They have been tied to laws, customs, and religions throughout ages. Their standards change with or according to human needs and interests. Human rights are actually not a recent innovation, because ideas about rights and responsibilities have been an important part of all societies throughout history. Since the Second World War, there has been a united effort by nations of the world to decide what rights belong to all the people and how they can best be promoted and protected. On the other hand, human rights law has foundations in the notions of natural rights developed by classical Greek philosophers such as Aristotle. Human rights law has roots in natural law. I'll come back to explain that when time permits, where scholars like Thomas Aquinas in Summa Theologica stated that there are behaviors that are naturally right or wrong because God ordained it to be so. What was naturally right could be ascertained by humans by right reason of thinking properly. So as I move on, at both the international and local level, there are treaties, there are covenants, there are declarations, there are principles and standards. All these are for the protection of human rights. Some of these are binding and some are non-binding. So the binding ones are we have the treaties, we have the conventions, and so on and so forth. And the non-binding ones, we have the principles and standards. At the local level, which I would say like the country level, we have human rights organizations and laws which all aim still to promoting human rights. So every human being has rights, correct? They are the rights that everyone enjoys as a virtue of life. For example, the Internet Encyclopedia Philosophy defines human rights as the basic moral guarantees that people in all countries and cultures have simply because they are people. In other words, human rights are the basic, or human rights, in other words, human rights are the rights human beings enjoy because they are human beings. Because you're a human being, guaranteed you have these rights. Human rights are a basic need that all humans must enjoy in order to have a meaningful life. So meaningful life is very subjective, but that is the international standard. Human rights ensure that people can freely and that they can reach their fullest potential, participate and contribute to society. All human beings must be treated fairly and with dignity and with respect, because respect for human rights is a very, very essential feature of constitutional democracy, and Uganda is considered a democratic country. So why are human rights important, and they're gonna take on human rights? In Uganda, human rights are provided for in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda under Chapter 4, which is named Human Rights and Freedoms. The protection of human rights in Uganda draws its inspiration from the civil rights movement that started at the end during the Second World War, and it led to the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948. The values of tolerance, equality, and respect can reduce friction within society. Putting human rights ideas into practice can help us create that kind of society, that we all want to live in. In recent decades, there has been a tremendous growth in how we think about and apply human rights ideas. This has had many positive results in that knowledge about human rights can empower individuals in a democratic society and offer solutions for specific problems. Human rights are important part of how people interact with each other at all levels of society, in the family, the community, in schools, in the workplace, in politics, and international relations. It is therefore very vital that we should all strive to understand what human rights are. When people understand what human rights are, it is easy for them to protect justice and then also the well-being of the society. Human rights protect us against the actions of those in power, or those who have power over us. For example, the police, the military, the governments, and so on and so forth. And the human rights also help us create a world in which we can all reach our fullest potential as human beings. We are entitled to have our human rights protected and promoted simply because we are human beings who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. This means that your race or sex or ethnicity, origin, color or religion, or any other status, we are all human beings who are entitled to human rights. There are 3 core principles of human rights that describe how human rights work and how human rights apply. The first core principle is the principle of inalienable or inalienable. That is the word. The word, gives me trouble. Which means that our rights will apply to us simply because we are human beings. They cannot be taken away from us by anybody, not even by those in power. Our rights cannot change even when our life circumstances change. The second core principle is the principle of interdependency. This simply means that human rights come as a full package, that the protection of some rights depend on the protection of the other rights. For example, a person cannot be denied health care and hope that the life to life can be granted. These two work hand in hand. On the other hand, our human rights support one another and strengthen one another. The other core principle is the principle of equality and non-discrimination, which simply means that every person enjoys the same set of rights. The rights apply equally to everybody, regardless of your social or economical background. Like I said earlier, the Ugandan Constitution the Ugandan Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and it grants for human rights. One of the important part of the Ugandan Constitution, as far as an ordinary person is concerned, is the Bill of Rights, which is under Chapter 4, like we've seen earlier. This chapter embodies the rights that are to be respected by all authorities, the state, and the individuals. This whole chapter is dedicated to human rights, and it outlines different groups of human rights. First of all, it gives a number of basic rights which include the right to equality before the law, and the right to life, and the right to human dignity. Chapter 4 of the Constitution goes on to talk about the civil rights, which are the rights a person or an individual has as a member of a society, state, or nation. So they are the rights citizens enjoy because they are citizens of Uganda. The civil rights also include freedom of religion, freedom of belief and opinion, and freedom of expression. Then further, this chapter has talks about political rights, or outlines political rights, which include citizens' right to make political choices, such as forming or campaigning for a political party, and the right to vote in a free and fair elections. I don't know why I'm laughing, but free and fair elections. What is special about the Bill of Rights in Uganda is it focuses on the socio-economic rights. For example, the right to housing, the right to education, the right to health care, the right to food, water, and the right to social security. Not all countries commit themselves to these rights. These rights place a special duty onto this special duty and responsibility to the government, and this is in the Ugandan perspective. This chapter places this responsibility to the government of Uganda. So you are entitled to this by the Constitution. There are different groups of human rights under the Bill of Rights in Chapter 4. The bill requires the government to respect, promote, and fulfill these constitutionally granted rights. So human rights not only talk about, are supposed to be observed by the government, but also citizens, where citizens not only have rights but obligations too. The same values that protect us to guide citizens on how to treat one another in the society. As a citizen, you have the responsibility to protect these rights at all times. For example, even if we do not like another person, it is our duty to respect his or her rights, right? This can easily be shown when we think about the basic rights. For example, the right to basic education, which essentially means that you are free to go to school, but also means that you cannot prevent or stop anybody from going to school. but this has actually been done in Uganda as I speak. The Bill of Rights also applies to relations between individuals, the government, and other institutions. Human rights are important because human rights are a central feature of any constitutional democracy, like we've seen, and Uganda is perceived or carries itself as a constitutional, rather a democratic country. We move on to the failed state of human rights in Uganda. Like in the previous episode, we've talked about the constitution. Uganda has a constitution which has truly suppressed the ordinary individual and has given the rulers absolute and lots of powers. It is a shame that the Ugandan constitution dedicates a full chapter to human rights, like we've seen. Chapter 4, if you opened it, is dedicating to human rights, but nothing mentioned under this chapter applies in Uganda or has been observed in Ugandan terms. Many human rights organizations are present and active and have again and again condemned human rights violation in this country, like the killings, the murders, abductions, and all lots of things. Because the head of the country is the law himself, all these recommendations and condemnations fall on deaf ears. It's more like, what are you talking about? Human rights are grossly violated, and such violations are directly attributed to the government, no question. The law provides for several agencies to investigate, inquire into, and prosecute human rights violations like the unlawful killings by the security forces. However, it is evident that these agencies were largely ineffective. The constitution established by the Republic of Uganda, it established the Uganda Human Rights Commission, that is the UNHCR, to investigate any person or group of persons for violation of human rights. But all this is merely said. Reports were written, violations still continue. So literally, these are things on paper, Human rights are inherent and are not accorded by the state. That is why individuals enjoyment of human rights is not limited to what is provided for in the Constitution. The notion of human rights goes beyond the violation that we see currently. As the world evolves, new violations come up, and that may not necessarily be provided for in the Constitution. The lack of express protection of certain human rights is used as an excuse to commit the gross violation of human rights in Uganda. Fellow Ugandans, it is our time to protect our human rights. It is now that we revolt to oust the bloody regime, the bloody angry regime. For a gentle reminder, the Constitution provides for all these rights, but nothing has basically been done. Nothing has stopped the Ugandan government, security forces from violating these rights. For example, the right to life, where people are turning up to hospitals and there is no oxygen, they end up dying, so the right to life is violated there and then. So I call upon you people, we stand up. The time is now. There's no other time. It's today. It is now that we do something. Otherwise, we're going to continue dropping dead in hospitals, being shot by, security organizations, being done all the unthinkable things that a fellow human being can ever do to another human being. Thank you for watching, and thank you for staying until the end. For any feedback, you can leave in the comment sections below. You can also email us at hello@getunn.com. Thank you very much for watching. Until next Sunday, have a good morning, a good evening, or a good afternoon. Ciao.
Good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from here at the UNN TV. My name is Hanifa, for those of you who are new and wondering who is she. Yes, Hanifa, and I'm here yet with another episode of your Rights and the Law show here at the UNN TV. It has been quite a while since I was last here, and a lot of things have happened, both the good and the bad things. But in anything which has happened, we just only thank God that we are still here. I would like also to say thank you to all of you who reached out when I lost my mother a few about 2 months ago. That was so thoughtful of you guys to send out the condolence messages and that kind of thing. That was so heartwarming. Yeah, thank you very much. At the same time, I also send out my sympathies and condolences to any of you who's lost their loved ones. It is really heartening, or it hurts so much in a sense that I personally I had a very good relationship with my mom, and the fact that she's no more, oh God, things I never thought about, but now I have to deal with. But anywho, I'm trying to forge a way of moving forward. It is hard. I can never forget, but I can always move forward from her death. And I hope whoever lost their loved ones are also trying to find a way of moving forward. Well, on the same note, I am so scared of the COVID, I should admit. Yes, so I'm taking all the precautionary measures available to try to mitigate the factors of myself catching COVID, or my loved one, or anyone I know catching COVID, which is why I got vaccinated against COVID. I got my AstraZeneca. It became available to people who are 40 years and below where I live. So I'm like, oh well, I may as well go and get the AstraZeneca, which I did get about a month ago, and I'm doing well. I'm not yet a zombie. So I would say if the vaccine is available for wherever you are living, you may as well, go get it. It won't hurt a soul. So it would be very sad if someone died of COVID yet the vaccines were available, which would try to prevent death. So I'm not a medical expert. I'm just saying my own personal experience. So don't quote me wrong. I got the vaccine. Today, without any further ado, I hope you are sharing the video. Please do share the video with people you think might be interested in this video, and then also do not forget to comment and ask me a few questions which you feel might help you or you would love to know about. So without any further ado, I'll be going into today's topic, or the episode for today, which is good governance. Beautiful. So in today's episode, I will explore the concept of good governance. I guess you have all heard about this term if you are indeed an active citizen. Remember, we are not the most educated or the most knowledgeable individuals here at the UNN TV. All we are here for is to share with you all the little knowledge and the little skills that we have with you all to enable you become an active citizen. It is highly believed that it is only an informed citizen who can be an active citizen, right? Which is why we're here. So to begin with, the concept of governance is not a new term. It is as old as human civilization. As simply put, governance means the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented or not implemented. That's pretty much what is governance. So good governance is an approach to government that is committed to creating a system founded on justice and peace that protects individuals' human rights and civil liberties. I keep calling liberties liabilities, but yeah, it's liberties. So good governance in a country cannot happen without a government, because the government is one of the actors in good governance. So there's no way it's going to be governance if there's no government. And a government is described as the body of persons a body of persons, yes, that constitutes the governing authority of a political unit or an organization. That is what we call government. So governance can be used in several contexts, such as corporate governance, links in the banks and corporate institutions, and then we have the international government, say between countries like Uganda and any other country, and then a national governance, which is within the country, and then we have the local governance, for example, where your area of residence, say somewhere down there in Uganda. Then good governance is about people, institutions, and financing development. Governance is more about how people, through institutions, decide on how to obtain, produce, and use and distribute resources. There are many other actors involved in governance, which vary depending on the level of government that is under decision. So when we say that, it's like which level of government is deciding on something. For example, in rural areas, for example, actors may include influential landlords, associations of peasant farmers, and cooperatives. We have the NGOs, research institutions, religious leaders, and finance institutions, political parties, and the military. These all influence, governance. We have qualities of good governance. Where there is governance, there has to be good governance, and there are qualities. So according to the United Nations, good governance is measured by the 8 factors, which include participation, rule of law, transparency, and responsiveness, census-oriented, equity, and inclusiveness. We have effectiveness and efficacy, and then accountability. Yes, accountability. So let's see. Today, I will explore all the above mentioned in detail as I reflect on Uganda and what would have been done if there was good governance in our country. Do we have good governance? I myself, I believe no. So let's see how we go. Number 1 of the quality of good governance is participation. Where participation by both men and women is important for good governance. Participation can be either direct or through legitimate institutions or representatives, say your local member of parliament or your local council, and so on. And participation needs to be informed and organized. So informed and organized. You can't just wake up today and say, boom, here I am. This means that freedom of information and association and expression on the other hand, and an organized civil society on the other hand. So where we have participation, these have to be in place. All people and groups, including the vulnerable groups, minority groups, the weak and the powerless, are involved in the ruling or managing of the country, either directly or indirectly. So we shall maybe directly by yourself or indirectly through representatives. So not giving the whole task to just the one person to manage the country, just as it is the case in Uganda, where we give everything, that this is the current leader is managing everything. He appoints the minister of toilet, he appoints everything, So then the second quality of good governance is the rule of law. This I've talked about before in my previous episode. So good governance requires fair laws that are enforced impartially, and the law enforcement institutions like the police and the courts of law. So when we say impartial, there is no being sidelined. Further, the rule of law also requires full protection of human rights, particularly the rights of the minorities and the poor, and the rights of the vulnerable, so that is the children, the women. So impartial enforcement of laws requires an independent judiciary and an impartial and incorruptible police force. And I don't know why I'm laughing. By impartiality, I mean treating everybody equally. For example, in the courts of law, judges are not biased towards one competitor over the other, which is what it is in Uganda. So here, everybody must abide by the laws of this country, and actually, no one is above the law. We are all, we have to abide by all the laws, and by everybody, it is literally everybody in Uganda or in a country. It won't matter if you are close allied to the first family, if your gross income is higher than the Ugandan GDP, or if you are the most qualified individual. Thus, everybody has to abide by the laws. So, rule of law also ensures that corruption and abuse of power is minimized. The views of minorities are taken into account, and that the voices of the most vulnerable in society are heard in decision making. So, if there was good governance, corrupt officials, for example, could be held accountable, tried in the courts of law, and are actually convicted, but we have heard or read again and again about officials who have embezzled public funds, have got unexplained wealth, like the lady someone who sold goats to purchase some government land, and nothing was actually done to these people. Actually, they were awarded a ministry position somewhere in Uganda. So because of the absence of good governance, we have normalized such immoral acts where such individuals are actually awarded minister or senior positions after stealing from the people of Uganda. So there is no governance at all whatsoever in Uganda. And then the third quality of good governance is transparency. By transparency, we mean that decisions are taken and their enforcement are done in a manner that follows rules and regulations. It also means that information is freely available and directly accessible to those who will be affected by such decisions and their enforcement. It also means that enough information is provided, and that it is provided in easily understandable forms and media. You know how in each and every part of Uganda, the message to vote for the yellow regime reaches all remote parts of the country, right? But the information about COVID and what people are supposed to do cannot go past 50 kilometers out of Uganda, because right now people are confused, like, what is COVID anyways? So COVID is a disease for those living in Kampala. So further, transparency is also responsive to the present and future needs of the society. Under good governance, all leadership in place is appointed or elected accordingly to already existing laws. So a leader can't make laws that favor them to be elected, which is a case in Uganda. Thus, if there was good governance in Uganda, the already existing constitutional law, for example, that limit the number of times a presidential candidate can rule, and the age limit would have never in a million years been tampered with if we had good governance. Further, all decisions taken by the leaders and those managing national programs would still be based on the existing laws. So you don't do laws which favor you. You already use the existing laws. So also the other quality of good governance is responsiveness, where good governance requires that institutions and processes try to serve all stakeholders within a reasonable time frame, where national programs and projects are put in place, where national programs put in place should be made in such a way that they meet people's needs. And to ensure this, people must be consulted on what they need, because needs differ from community to community. But as much as possible, the priority needs to be community should be met over over time or immediately as the situation calls for. So what is needed in Kampala is not really what is needed somewhere way out of Kampala. For example, during this pandemic, the COVID relief support or aid, well, it is over a year and a half since the pandemic started. However, little or no information or support whatsoever has been extended or has been received by the ordinary citizen. Yeah, there was money which was supposed to be received, which got lost somewhere in between, which is quite absurd. And any COVID project that has sprouted, it has been a massive failure, where the aid has not reached the intended communities in a timely manner. I hope people might get COVID, rather the refund, the support after 2024 when COVID is gone. Hence, if there was good governance, the process of extending support to communities and to Ugandans would be seemingly smooth and timely. Good governance is also consensus oriented. There are several actors and as many viewpoints in a given society, and so good governance requires mediation of the different interests in society to reach a broad consensus in society or what is in the best interest of all community, and this can be achieved. It requires a broad and long-term perspective on what is needed for this society, for suitability of human development and how to achieve the goals of such developments. This can only result from understanding of the historical, culture, and society context or of a community. For example, many pre-colonial societies in Africa, known as pre-colonial societies were based on a consensus-oriented model where decisions were discussed and debated until a consensus was agreed upon. So good governance still calls for this kind of, this kind of governance. In a similar way, good governance requires that different interests in society be balanced to reach a broad agreement in society on what is the best interest of the whole community, and how this can be achieved. It also requires a broad understanding of what is needed for sustainable human development and how this can be achieved. So decisions made by the rulers should be based on agreement of all people, not just the one person, So in Uganda, it's just the one person who makes all these decisions affecting millions of Ugandans, which is kind of crazy and out of, I have no words for that actually. And so these decisions are made by the majority, which is you, the Ugandan citizens, the 45 million Ugandans. And when, for example, when the Ugandan parliament passes a law, it must be agreed upon by all the majority of the members, even though checks and balances in case of Uganda are put in place to ensure that the minority views are not completely overruled. The ideas of majority making rules or decisions in parliament has indeed been misused in a way that the yellow regime has the majority of members of parliament. Thus, decisions are easily passed favoring the yellow regime because they are the majority. So because we're making decisions basing on the majority, so that is what happened in Uganda. Due to the lack of good government, a hell lot of bad decisions have been passed under the Ugandan government, and I can't even begin to mention which one, but we all know. The latest being the planned installation of car tracking devices by one Bush war hero. We all know that one Bush war hero rather. The other quality of good governance is equity and inclusiveness, and this is when a society's well-being depends on ensuring that all its members feel that they have a stake in it and do not feel excluded from the mainstream of society. This requires all groups, but particularly the most vulnerable, to have the opportunity to improve or maintain their well-being. For example, structures be put in place and concerned about the women, youth, persons with disabilities, and workers. So in this way, the system would be promoting fairness and respect for the views and participation of all concerned. The workers' rights, where the Ministry of Gender and Labor is as good as a dead institution, a resuscitation. So in Uganda, I don't know what the Ministry of Health does, or rather Labor does, but we have one. Then we move on to quality of effectiveness and efficiency, where good governance means that processes and institutions produce results that meet the needs of the society while making the best use of the resources at their disposal. The concept of efficiency in the context of good governance also covers the sustainable use of natural resources and the protection of the environment. The resources that are used to run programs would have been correctly identified and used if there was good governance. For example, we have natural resources in Uganda, but still not good enough. When we talk about resources, we refer to money, we have equipment, we have workers, information, and any other asset needed to make a program effective. However, with the rampant corruption in Uganda due to lack of good governance, money is being wasted on programs and programs are not being implemented and do not promote effectiveness or efficiency. Money, for example, the money we spend, Uganda spends on member of parliament cars would have never been spent. It would have been directed to more pressing issues. And you ask a question: why would Uganda need this money to be spent in the middle of the pandemic in the first place? So questions we have, and we have really no answers. And so good governance also means that processes and institutions produce results that meet the needs of the society while making the best use of all the resources at their disposal. It also covers natural resources and the protection of the environment. We have seen how forests and natural reserves have been awarded and destroyed by shoddy investors, yet protection of the environment should be a first priority under good governance. We only have the one earth to live. We have no other plan B or plan B planet. So the other quality of good governance is accountability, where accountability is a key requirement of good governance, in a sense that not only government institutions, but also private sector and civil society organizations must be accountable to the public and to their institutional stakeholders. In general, an organization or an institution is accountable to those who will be affected by the decisions or action of all their actions. In a political setting, the government is supposed to be accountable to its people, not the other way around. You get what I mean? So, and accountability cannot be enforced without transparency and the rule of law. Leaders in power should explain to the people they are leading how and what they have used specific public resources for, what programs are in place, and how they have promoted people's well-being. COVID funds up to date, there's still no accountability from any of the leaders in power, which is shocking. This is appalling. This is pathetic. I have no extra words to even explain this. So as I conclude, or in conclusion, good governance is a link is indeed a missing link in Uganda's democracy, where Uganda is faced with challenges such as rigging of elections, lack of effective participation of citizens in the political processes, and poor management of election, culture impunity, political violence, guided nature of democracy, lack of independent election management institutions. We have lack of neutrality of external and internal monitors. We have insecurity in Uganda. There is ineffectiveness of Ugandan police and police force, weakness of political parties, lack of credible opposition to challenge the incumbent political party. We have in Uganda corruption and lack of accountability. There is overbearing influence of the executive over the organs of the government. And because governance is the rules and processes determining how decisions are made and implemented, if there was good governance, and of course this will be attained in the better Uganda, rules and processes will have to be legitimate, fair, decent, accountable. They would be transparent, they would be effective, and enable collective action to solve problems for the public good. This will include effective government, would include the effective government including sound there would be sound public funding and also public management. And the above diagnosis pretty much fits neatly into the common argument of democracy and good governance issues in Uganda. We can achieve all this with a federal system of governance if in our better Uganda, or if we as Ugandans chose to had one, or we had one. For a better Uganda, my name is Hanifa, and a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are tuning from. For any of your suggestions, comments, feedback, you can leave that in the comment section below, or you can email us at our email address, which is hello@getunn.com. So I will be able to answer a few questions. I hope you have benefited something, or you are able to pick something from here. You're not here to listen to attack, but you are here to listen with the objective of learning. Listen to understand. That's the way forward. Actually, that is how we learn as well. So until next time, I hope to see you again. Have a good morning, a good afternoon, and ciao. Hey, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing the video, and thank you for always clicking on when the notification comes on, and then you're always here. I truly appreciate that. Oh, did I even greet you? Good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from here at the UNN TV. For those of you who may not know me, or who may need a reminder, I should say, my name is Hanifa, and I'm here with your Rights in the Law show here at the UNN TV. Yes, it happens every Sunday. Sometimes life happens, and for example, last weekend I was unable to be here with you, but every now and then, whenever I get some time, I'm always here for the Rights in the Law show here every Sunday. And also, like we've always said, we are not the most knowledgeable or the most educated people here at the UNN, but the main reason we are here is to give you information we have, share information we have with you. We also learn from you. Interestingly, we learn things from you, our viewers. So by doing so, by sharing information with you, we are enabling you to become an active citizen, as it is believed that it is only an informed citizen who can be an active citizen, which, put in the sense that if you do not know about something, there's no way you may put up about, start asking about questions and all that kind of thing, which is why we are always here. It's like every time we always come up and talk about things, share with you lots of things. Yes, as I say that, may you please not forget to share the video with somebody you may think or you may feel may benefit from whatever I have to share this afternoon, this evening, or this night. Yes, because it's night time my side. Thank you very much, and without any further ado, I'll be going into today's episode. Well, today is episode number 6. Wow, time really flies, and just like yesterday, I was just beginning to do this recording. So, in today's episode, I'll be talking about public accountability in a representative democracy. When you talk about Uganda carries itself as a very democratic country. So is it really a democratic country, or this is something which is on paper? Well, the term accountability has come up a few times in my previous episodes. For example, in the leadership series, human rights series, and responsible governments, and many others. We've heard about it quite some time. Every now and then about accountability. What is it, anyways? What does it really mean? In today's episode, I will be exploring accountability in a representative democracy. I guess by this time, when I talk about accountability, we are not referring to money, but rather lots of factors and considerations. So I think by now we're very aware of that. By representative democracy, we are referring to a democracy where eligible citizens elect members of parliament to make decisions and laws on their behalf. So, for example, the recently concluded elections where people in Uganda elected their representatives, so that's why we call about representative democracy. Accountability has then been described as the hallmark of modern democratic governance. Accountability then refers to the obligations of a public enterprise and agencies who are entrusted with public resources to be answerable for physical and social responsibilities to those who have assigned such responsibilities to them. Accountability involves citizens holding their leaders accountable for their actions, most especially if the actions are against the public good. For example, where you ask your leader may say to dig up a borehole or build a road or, probe for a law or do anything. So now we're asking, okay, for example, when when holding our leaders accountable, we're asking them, how far have you gone? What went wrong? What went right? Give us feedback. That's what we call about accountability. Accountability is not a new idea. For example, Benjamin Disraeli, a 19th century British politician, wrote that all power is a trust that we are accountable for its exercise, and that from the people and for the people all springs and all must exist. So we are getting all the power from the people. That's what it means. Hence why accountability is believed to lie at the heart of a democratic government. Remember, Uganda is perceived as a democratic country. Is it just on paper, or is it like really a democratic country? For that question, I'll leave you to answer that. At the heart of accountability is a relationship between those responsible for something and those who have a role in the passing of judgment on how well that responsibility has been discharged. So we asked our leader to build a road. Have they done it? So we're holding them accountable. When accountability works well, it enables a degree of feedback between the government and the public that it serves. Hear me right, it's the government serving you, the ordinary citizen, the everyday Ugandan, not the other way around, where in Uganda it's the citizen serving the government. So, where the public's power is entrusted to others, There is an important and an overreaching constitutional and fiduciary principle that those entrusted with public power are accountable to the public for the exercise of their trust. It is also observed that public's trust in the public sector and public service is closely related to the level of confidence the public has in the public, you know. Is there confidence in the Ugandan public? Is it comfortable in its government? I don't think so. So by public sector, we are referring to the production, delivery, and the allocation of goods and services by and for the government or its citizens, whether at the central or local government level. The public sector covers all government ministries and agencies of government. So being accountable to the public is an obligation of all those who hold office or employment in the government system. So if you hold a government position, then you are accountable. It is a burden that is placed on the public sector when it accepts responsibility for exercising power on behalf of the public. Remember, the public is you, the ordinary citizen, the everyday Ugandan, the taxpayer. You are the public. We agree that public accountability comes from the need for a trusting relationship between the public sector and the public. It is about the public sector demonstrating competence, reliability, and honesty in a way that allows the public to judge the trustworthiness in using public money and resources and public resources. So that makes me actually, is your leader trustworthy? Do you think when they have all these at their disposal, can they be held accountable? Public accountability is a crucial instrument in a democratic society alongside a safeguard of rule of law and a tool of learning in policy. It is acknowledged that there is complexity of accountability in modern government arrangements, and there is a continuum of accountability relationships, both at vertical and horizontal between the public sector, the government, the parliament, and the Ugandan citizens. So all these are intertwined, kind of. Nevertheless, there are some fundamental tenets and practices of accountability that are well established in public administration. And that brings us to the question: is public accountability a reality in Uganda? Is public accountability a reality, or is it a myth in Uganda? Rather a myth, is it real? We see legislation prescription for public accountability is contained in several pieces of legislation. For example, the Ministry of Public Services, the Ugandan Constitution, the PPDA, the IG Act. There is the Leadership Code of Act. We have the Anti-Money Laundering Act. We have the Whistleblowers Act. There are lots of, measures put in place to cater for accountability in Uganda, actually. But then we see, do these things also work, the government ministers have under the Constitution a doctrine of responsible government and both collective and individual responsibilities. So the minister of education, the minister of so and so has a constitutional responsibility. Accountability is a minister is accountable to the parliament for the policies and actions implemented by his or her department. So as earlier mentioned, all measures and legislations have been put in place holding these ministers, public servants, accountable for their action. For example, by now, if there was accountability in the public sector, the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Health would be held accountable. Like, what have you done? What are the goods? how far have you gone, for example, with trying to curb down COVID? How far have you gone with setting up hospitals, for, makeshift hospitals and all that kind of thing? We will be holding these people accountable if there was accountability. However, little has been done at all in, holding these people accountable, and there's so much corruption in Uganda, which makes you like, for example, the government has not supported the IGG to fight corruption. Corrupt officials are let off the hook because they are related to, or they are allies to, the ruling family. And one wonders, why was the IGG, for example, set up? If because it was meant to hold these people accountable, but you're like, why did you even waste time and money setting it up? This has resulted into patronage and impunity, which makes some people in government beyond the arm of the law. Hence why at liberty and misuse of public funds without being held accountable. The current system has made it hard for the bearers to prosecute cases of misuse of public funds by officials. For example, this guy of the Gavi Fund, embezzlement, and many others, whereby then the health minister and his counterpart were let off the hook, simply because they are relatives and they are allies to the ruling family. This is shocking. So we're not really in a democratic country, kind of. Further, the system has led to an increase to lack of trust in public institutions by the public due to the fact that there are few corrupt officials, if any, that have been convicted or who have been held accountable for their actions. By now, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Health, if I was, they will be held accountable. Give us answers. Don't just come here and, bullshit about things, There is also an increasing level of acceptance of corruption among the public, interestingly, and citizens have been made to believe that they are servants to the government officials. This is attributed to the fact that some people have come out openly to support and praise corruption in media and lack of, incompetence. People praise it, which is crazy, so due to the continued lack of accountability at the courts of law, for example, there is a misuse of discretion of judicial officials while handling cases. Judiciary in Uganda, we have witnessed unfair hearings and the inaccessibility of justice by citizens, corruption, there is bribery and failed judiciary simply because there is no accountability whatsoever. Everyone just does what they please, no one is going to ask me questions, that kind of attitude. In functioning democracies, judges are accountable to the law and the community. The judiciary is an independent arm of government and it is accountable. You can't just do things because okay, no one is going to ask me, I'll do whatever I want. Even in our own lives, we are accountable to some degree or some extent, However, in Uganda, this is completely the opposite, where a victim seeking justice has to meet the president to ever be able to get justice, if ever, bags of money exchange hands at the courthouse where judges are bribed, prosecutors are bribed, oh my goodness, simply because there is no accountability. It should be remembered that the duties of the judiciary are owed to the law, which is therefore the peace, order and good government of for the good of the community. Simply, the point is made that accountability is required nowadays in most areas of public life, and that the judiciary should be no exemption, because we all held accountable. If all ministries and all kind of things are held accountable, why not the judiciary? Which is exactly the case in Uganda. This has been acknowledged by one of the Australian Justice McCarthy, that judges are like all other officials on the community and must be held accountable to the community. So if this happened in Uganda, maybe the judiciary will be functions. For the case of Uganda, as earlier mentioned, judiciary is far is a very faraway dream, one that can only be realized and trust rebuild in a leader under a federal system of governance. As I conclude today, what can be done in Uganda for a better Uganda? As it's known, we only have that one place we call home. And in a better Uganda, we would start to mobilize, sensitize, and empower citizens to demand for transparency and accountability from their leaders. It is your responsibility to hold your leaders accountable. They are your servants, not the other way around, like you are their servants. Further, a deliberate intervention, one that aims at increasing citizens' participation in monitoring utilization of public resources, increased interference, and a dialogue between leaders and the people they serve to share experiences and ideas on how best to improve service delivery in their localities or in their areas of residence, where leaders will not act like they are from Mars, governing people who are on earth. How is it like in Uganda today? Our leaders are just like, they're untouchable. That's how they feel like, If they were held accountable, maybe things would be different. As public accountability is about maintaining trusting relationship between the public sector and the public, then the way the public sector interacts with the public is also important, and this has to change when we go in a new Uganda and in the federal system of governance. So before I sign off today, I will leave you with my favorite quote of the week, which goes like, if we find that a person is competent in the relevant matter and the reliability and honest, we'll have a pretty good reason to trust them because they have been trustworthy. This is a quote by someone called O'Neill in a TED Talk in June 2013. So, do you trust your leader? Do you trust your government? Do you trust your local leader? So are you a trustworthy person if you are to be a leader? Because we are all leaders in one kind of way, which is why I would say in a better federal system of governance, we are holding our leaders accountable. Government institutions are being accountable. So what have you done? What have you achieved? All these have to be in place. Are you performing? Are you being productive? All these have to be asked. So where non-performing ministries, non-performing ministers, non-performing leaders, we don't have to are voted out or are thrown out, can be easily replaced. But in today's Uganda, you see someone has been as dormant as, what's the most dormant thing? A leader, someone leading a ministry. Their ministry, say for example, the Ministry of Education. I'm so angry at this person who heads the Ministry of Education in Uganda. She has been as dormant as a coffin, in a sense that there has been nothing achieved. There is no hope for our students in Uganda, where it's coming to 2 years. Students at home. It's only in Uganda where students are home. Parents are not being given feedback on what, you need that daily feedback. When is my child going to school? When is my child going to be able to be back in class? And then someone comes out in all their human being shape, should say, in all them being an adult, and they utter out complete garbage, I should say, complete nonsense, but these people are still being ministers. This is not the Uganda we want to be. This is not the Uganda which we want to raise our children in, because for us, all adults by now, maybe bad luck, we've suffered in a very bad country which has bad leadership. But how about the future generation? They are at home, seated. I was having a conversation with somebody, interviewing somebody in Uganda who told me, I didn't know there was even tax on on internet. That I didn't know. That was a new one for me. And then I'm like, okay, so there's tax on the internet. But the same minister sits every day on the TV, gives press conferences on internet, asking people to be doing remote learning. How many people in Uganda are able to really afford internet, truthfully speaking? This is going to be like for the few people who are still the very corrupt officials who will be able to afford internet so that their children are able to do the remote learning. So this person said, now I gave up on buying data. I don't have the money to buy the data. I have this person has 4 children. So imagine buying data and paying taxes for 4 children, because the classes are different classes. So this person said, I've resorted to farming, because the schools, the likelihood of the Minister of Education opening schools is close to nothing, is close to none. So schools in Uganda might not be opened until 2022 or 2023, if I'm not so sure, but but everywhere in the world, we've had COVID where I am, and students have been going to school. If it calls for remote learning, there's remote learning. The government puts things necessary to help a parent, because not everybody is rich, not everybody has a computer, not everybody has this. So they try to do everything necessary to see that our children, students are back to school, they are learning, they're not missing a year, or say, for Ugandans case, 2 years without education. So if there was, really democracy, which democracy calls for accountability, the person in charge of the Ministry of Education would be long gone. They are not performing. They're not performing at all, so they'll be already gone. So I would be sit here and vent for the next 20-30 minutes. But I would like to say thank you for sitting here, listening to me. And if you do have any more questions, suggestions, and anything else, please leave us an email at hello@getunn.com. Or also, actually I forgot. Someone mentioned that I am very soft when I'm speaking, or my voice is low. Truthfully speaking, I'm a soft speaker as a person. So I am learning. This is a new gig, like I said, we learn from each other. So I'm learning to speak to a broader public. So maybe I'll get there, but thank you for that feedback. I truly appreciate. So I hope today is loud enough. Hopefully, I don't know. Anyways, until next time, my name is Hanifa once again. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Until we meet again next week, inshallah. Have a great time. Jambo. Hey, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from here at the UNN TV. For those of you who are new here, my name is Hanifa, and I'm here yet with another episode of your Right in the Law show here at the UNN TV. I hope you've been keeping well. It is very challenging times that we are living in, and I hope you've been keeping safe and trying to protect yourself against the COVID and all things COVID. So I think this is what we're going to be talking about worldwide for the next few years. Seems like the COVID is here to stay. But I'm here. Apologies that I have been away for quite some time. Life happened, I had a few work commitments and a few everything happened, and I have life to live as well. So I decided to have some little bit of time off in between recording and everything. So I've been away for quite, I think, 2 weeks. But the good news is I'm here, back again, and yes, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for coming back always, and thank you for being here.
Like we have always said, here at the UNN, we are not the most educated or the most knowledgeable individuals, but we are always here to share the little knowledge, the little skills and everything we have with you guys, to enable you to become an active citizen of Uganda. It is heavily believed that it is only an active citizen, rather an informed citizen, who can be an active citizen, and which is why we are here. Interestingly, much as we're giving you information, we're giving you knowledge and all that kind of thing, we are at the same time learning from you, so which is kind of a two-way kind of process or relationship. Also, on a personal note, I feel like sometimes when I'm talking, I am really talking to you physically. You know how the world has changed. Like it's not like a virtual relationship, so it feels like sometimes it's I am really there speaking to people physically, and I am kind of beginning to get more comfortable with public speaking, which is not my thing, but I try to do. I hope most of us would agree. Speaking on a public medium is not something easy. So, but with learning and having an open mind, like I can learn and do things. So here we are. Yes. So, and I hope what else do I want to say? Yes. So I may be a little bit whispering. I hope I'm not, because my house is kind of full. It's school holiday time this side, so kids around and kind of thing. They're watching a movie, so I don't want them to interact saying what am I doing in there. As soon as how kids are kind of interesting, as soon as they hear you locked away in a certain room, that is when all the questions start coming. Oh, I want this, I want that. And here, if you hear any noise in the background, yes, I'm a parent, so I have children and I live with some people in my house, so there may be some moving up and down, but luckily I can afford to have a media room or a private room where I can do the teaching, or should I call them the tutorials, or I don't know, where I can be able to reach out to you, which is very good. So as I wait on two more people to log in, we may have a chit chat. And yes, what have I been doing? Yeah, I've been really engrossed with work. As an adult, work gets really in the way that we spend most of our adult life working. I'm not complaining. I'm very grateful that amidst the pandemic, I still have a job, full-time employed, which most people do not really have due to the pandemic. Most people have been cut off work, but luckily nothing happened to me. Life kept on going as normal, and the only problem will be continuously working from home. It's coming to 2 years. The last time I was stepped into the office, that was around December last year. For Christmas, we had a Christmas party at the work, and I had some other things to do in our work. I think I did go in early January, but yeah, that's it. So since then we've been full-time working from home, and hopefully the world will go back to normal, kind of COVID normal, and we get back into work. So yes, I think that's a little bit of the introduction, and I should say let's just get into what it is today I have in store. So, and that finally brings us to today's episode. I have named this episode Democracy. I put democracy in quotes in a dictatorship. Wednesday the 15th of September was the International Democracy Day, Democracy Day, where Uganda participated in these activities with a hashtag Democracy Day in Uganda, in UG I should say, and then lots of things were happening where the major activities of this day were carried out by the Civic Space TV or Civic Space something, with one of Uganda's resilient advocates, Miss Sarah Biretti, I think that's the right pronunciation, of Center for Constitutional Governance. It is really important that young people, amidst the scrapping of civic education in Uganda syllabuses, are finding ways and they're engaging in meaningful civic debates. I found this to be really good, and that this center is really doing great work.
Though I am very late to the party, yes, I know, and I'll be talking about democracy in a dictatorship with reference to Uganda in particular. A few questions keep hanging every time I must say we read about democracy in Uganda. Questions like, can Uganda have both? That is, a dictator at one side and democracy at the other side, or both all at one time. So we have a dictator and we're having democracy. Where Uganda is one of a few nations in the world with a president who has ruled for a very, very long time. A ruler whose regime is older than most of us here. Yes, I think 35 years. But Uganda is perceived as a democratic country. Yes, interestingly. Today, I'll be exploring what democracy means. To start with, democracy literally means government by the people. The word democracy comes from the ancient Greek words demos, meaning the people, and kratos, meaning to rule. Democracy, a democratic country has a system of government in which the people have the power to participate in decision making. This essentially means that the supreme powers are vested in the hands of the people and are exercised by them directly or indirectly through a system of representation which involves periodic, free and fair elections. I must stress the point that each democracy is unique and works in different ways. Where in some democracies, citizens help make decisions directly by voting on laws and policy proposals. This is referred to as direct democracy. In other countries, for example, Uganda, citizens choose representatives to make decisions on their behalf. This is referred to as representative democracy, where you elect your local member of parliament or your local council, etc., etc. On the other hand, yes, a dictatorship is a form of government in which one person or a small group of people possesses absolute power without effective constitutional limitations. The perfect example I would give is the current government of the Republic of Uganda, where a group of, Bush war heroes have been ruling for most of us have known, So, and then finally, this brings us to the key principles or the core principles of democracy, as I discussed, to see on a scale of 10, should I say, where does Uganda sit as a democratic country? An ideal democracy has its heart and the following core defining values, where there is freedom of election and being elected. Citizens have a chance. In a democracy, citizens have a chance, freedom, and a choice to participate in elections of people they want to represent them. Also, citizens have the freedom to be elected. This freedom is for all citizens, and elections are ideally free and fair with no limitations. No limitations, no violence or brutality, and no imprisonment. So, does this happen in Uganda? I don't think so. In an ideal democracy, there is freedom of assembly and political participation. This essentially means that an individual or a citizen can freely associate with a political party. The right to a peaceful assembly protects the rights of individuals and groups to meet for a common purpose or in order to exchange ideas and information, to express their views publicly and hold a peaceful protest. Is this the case in Uganda? Can people protest? Can people freely associate or subscribe to a political party without intimidation, without imprisonment, without harassment? Without repercussions from the yellow regime? We keep these questions for a very much later discussion or a much more later insight. Further, in a democracy, there is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and religious beliefs, where citizens take part in the conduct of public affairs by exerting influence through public debate and dialogue with their representatives or through their capacity to organize themselves. This participation is supported by ensuring freedom of expression and assembly and association. In order to ensure the full enjoyment of rights protected under Article 25 of the UN Charter, the free communication of information and ideas about public and political issues between citizens, candidates, and elected representatives is very, very essential. This implies a free press and other medias are able to communicate on public issues without censorship or restraint and to inform the public opinion. Is this the case in Uganda? Have you heard about how media houses are restricted on what they have to say, what they are supposed to report, or they risk their license being stripped off by the government or the regulatory body? The other principle of democracy is the rule of law. Here, the rule of law is that principle that both the government and the citizens know the law and ruled by it. So you have to know the law so that you are ruled by it. This means that the law applies to everyone regardless of their position or status. To make sure everyone knows the law and their rights, laws should be easy to understand and always enforced. So if there is a law, it's understood by a citizen and then it's enforced. Then the last principle of democracy, the other basic human rights, which I have discussed in my previous episodes. So that brings us to the question: what are the benefits of democracy in Uganda? Where Uganda is believed to be a democratic country. Winston Churchill once famously said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. Although not perfect, democracy aims to bring most benefits to the most number of people, and these include: there are always ways to resolve, for example, different views and conflicts peacefully. There is respect for human dignity, the freedom to act, speak, and think freely, as long as it does not stop others from doing the same. There is equality before the law. There is safety and secure community. Good government that is effective, that is transparent, that is responsive and accountable to its citizens. Then the other benefit is the ability to hold elected leaders or rulers accountable. However, in Uganda, democracy is a dream that Ugandans see on a paper, but in reality in Uganda, democracy has been or is challenged by corruption. There is inefficiency. There is the role of the antisocial elements. There's growing economic and social inequalities. There is corruption. There is no rule of law in Uganda. So this all undermines democracy. In the 21st century, which means there is more periodic elections, where in Uganda the periodic elections take place every 5 years, and the same ruler has been elected for the last 5 years. So does that mean we're democratic? I don't think so. It means that the permanent public scrutiny and restraint to power, wherever it is exercised in the democratic and cross-border field or government and civil society, the historic structure for one person, one vote over and over. So in the new age, of minority democracy. Elections still, however, count, but parties and parliaments now have to compete with thousands of minority organizations and networks and lots of other people that they try to keep power on its toes. So if there is competition, you're keeping the leaders on their toes, which is not the case in Uganda, where we have a very oppressing constitution that has again and again oppressed our citizens but aided the ruler. Our constitution has a whole chapter which is dedicated to human rights, which rights are basic principles of democracy. But these rights, again and again, have been violated by the government. There's been imprisonment, there's torture, and so on and so forth. So, it is even a democratic country? Is it even a democratic country? In my opinion, I don't think so. Uganda's democracy is just like basically something we see on paper, where only a blind person would believe that Uganda is a democratic nation. We shall all remember, Uganda is something, rather a country, I don't want to say something, which heavily relies on donations, foreign aid, and so on and so forth. So some of these are foreign donors or aid donors. They want to keep their relationship with, or they want to maintain a relationship with only a country which exercises democracy. So which is why we always see elections are always held just to, I would say, to sugarcoat that Uganda has democracy, but in real actual sense, there is no democracy. So because donors say you have to be a democratic nation for us to be able to exchange, to give you monies or whatever they do, or to exchange relationship or to have a relationship with such a country. So this is why we see, I was watching a talk. Was it a talk show, an interview? I just don't call it a talk show because the president talks like he's addressing some of his offsprings, where he was saying Uganda is indeed, there is freedom of speech. Yes, actually true, if we say freedom of speech, where he goes on to mention there has been, since he came into power in 1986, there has been a number of radio stations which have opened up here. I'm not so sure about how many radio stations are in Uganda, but they are radio stations. But interestingly, when we base on that freedom of speech, there are radio stations, yes, but where someone tells you, I have to read a script which you're going to, about things you're going to air, everything which you have to produce, or if it's a TV station, if it's a radio station, everything has to go via the State House so that all the scripts are examined. Is this really still freedom of speech? Where the newspapers are censored, where whatever you have to report on has to be edited to suit the ruling regime, taste. Is this really still democracy? Which democracy calls for freedom of speech? So in my own personal view as an individual, as Hanifa, I say, this guy is so cunning, and I should say, the ruling regime is very cunning in that they know democracy talks about freedom of speech, so let's give them their newspapers, we're going to give them radio stations, TV stations, but in the back, we have to guide them. Actually, it's guided media production, where we have to guide you on what you have to give out to the general public, and this is exactly what is happening in Uganda, and we're saying, yes, we have democracy. So when you Google Uganda right now, it's going to say it's a democratic country. So we say, yes, we have we respect human rights, where we have lots of different human rights organizations in Uganda, and we have a very whole chapter dedicated to just human rights. And then we're still saying, yes, because democracy is talking about human rights protection. So we're going to dedicate our whole constitution to human rights. And, these are things on paper to me. These are just things on paper just to keep a dormant person, to lie to a dormant individual that, yes, you have this, but basically in reality and in practice, there is nothing. There's no freedoms at all. So where you can't come up and wear your red, blue, whatever, and go and protest, where you cannot really stand up on a medium where and speak your mind, speak what you feel like without being pulled out of the radio station or the TV station by the ruling regime. Is that still democracy? Where we have to democracy talks about protection of human rights again, where in Uganda people are still dying, for just the basic diseases, which are basic treatable diseases, where there is, under human rights, we have where the well-being of, your citizens, well-being of citizens of a country is protected. So where a country or a government provides the basic health care, is this the case in Uganda? No. People are still dying, just for malaria. There is no medication in hospital. There are no beds in hospital. But still, we are saying we are a democratic country where you cannot stand up and speak your ground. I know someone would say you are speaking, but I'm very far away from Uganda, and I don't know if I was in Uganda, I would have been able to speak what I'm speaking right now. And then when we talk about human rights still, under human rights, education is, a very essential right. In Uganda, tell me right now how many people are able to go to school, or how many people are able to even read and write, how many people have access to education. Interestingly, right now it's coming to 2 years, schools are still closed, and with no hope of these schools being open, and still we're saying, yes, we are indeed a democratic country. Still, as I conclude today, democracy, it is something so that we can get rulers, the current ruler or the current regime is blinding Ugandans with to believe that there is democracy, but indeed, in all instances, I should say, there is nothing like democracy. We are sugarcoating it, so just say it is, and Uganda is a very, very democratic, rather dictator state. In a democracy where someone has stayed, or where someone has been a leader for 36 years, and we're still saying we are very democratic? No, I don't think so. So that brings us to the end of today's episode, where all the democracies we deserve as Ugandans who have suffered for the last 35 years or 36 years would be realized if we went through a very federal system of government, which leads me to say, if you haven't yet sent in through your form to ufcc@unn.com.au to view out your views, or rather air out your views, or give us your knowledge, expertise on what you feel about a federal, please do so. Until we catch again. Oh, also before I go, you can drop your comments in the comment sections below, or you can give me feedback at hello@unn.com. I always try to answer back, and thank you for always being here. Thank you for always coming to watch. I'll try to keep up and, with the demand, trying to frequently be here every Sunday if life doesn't get in my way. Thank you very much. Until next time, inshallah. See ya. Bye. Hello. Welcome. My name is Hanifa. For those of you who are new here, thank you for clicking, or thank you for being here. And for anybody who is returning, thank you for always coming back. I hope you are having a great weekend, I should say. And did I even say good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you are watching us from today, or I should say tonight. Well, the week is done. Yeah, actually, it is October. Yes, the year is going really so quick, I should say. And the weeks really go so fast, and I'm not so sure, because maybe as an adult, days are going so quick and all that kind of thing, that you're so busy doing work, getting engrossed into work, that everything moves really quick. Like, it was Friday and I was still thinking it is a Thursday, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I haven't done my research for what I have to be talking about this weekend. But luckily and on time, I've been able to, and I hope you have been able to, achieve what you wanted to achieve for the week. And if you haven't been able to achieve what you had wanted to achieve, there is always time, there is always a chance. You're starting a new week soon, so maybe whatever you hadn't achieved, what you had planned to achieve last week, can be achieved into this week. Yes. So what made news this week? This week, as I was going through the news in Uganda, something really caught my attention. This was from the Minister of Education. That was really funny. Not really funny. It is sad that I was seeing on the tweet where she was opening up a dormitory, yes, in one of the best schools, old schools in Uganda, Gayaza High School. And I was like, okay, are they opening up schools then? Okay, no, they're not opening up schools, but guess what? They're opening up dormitories. And like, who's going to sleep in these dormitories? Kids who are, or students who are home, are they coming to sleep in these dormitories? So I found that, personally, it's kind of a mockery, There's no road plan to when schools are going to be open, but then here you are with her capacity. That is opening up. She was suggesting that chemistry should be taught in all Ugandan local languages. It should be noted Uganda has over 52, tribes. So imagine converting all these, chemistry symbols to all these 52 languages. And most times in a class, where students are sitting in a class, they're coming from different tribes, but they're sharing the same class. So how is that even going to be possible? Like, imagine. So if I say stupid, some people are so born to be stupid, or some people don't think beyond, or some people are so incompetent on their job. This is a very good example of someone who is very incompetent, that even though she might have come from a very good position, saying chemistry be taught in our local languages, but did she even try to think that these classrooms are shared by students from way out all over Kampala, or rather all over Uganda, who speak different languages? We have people who are speaking Luganda, we're having students who are speaking Swahili, people who are speaking Lunyankole, people who are speaking any other kind of languages. So we're all in the same class. So how are they? So if they say oxygen, is it going to be said oxygen first in Luganda, then second in this? So truly speaking, that was a very stupid suggestion, and something maybe she did not quite think through. Yeah, like, what would you expect if you get, if positions are very powerful government positions that awarded to people just through nepotism, what would you really expect? So these are the very good results we're seeing from a country which is ruled by very, very, very selfish, very incompetent, very incapable people. So this is exactly what we're seeing. So what else made news in Uganda? Trying to remember, lots of things happen in Uganda that you even sometimes lose track of what happened yesterday, what happened the other day. But anyways, those are the few things which caught my attention. I'm very passionate about education, so I feel this is a right. Everybody has a right to education. But things which are happening in Uganda, they're way off what is supposed to be in education. Because students here, students around the world, everywhere, like where, my son particularly, schools close, we go online because we, the country can afford for students to be online. But throughout the past 2 years, students have been studying. It is challenging, but at least there is that kind of trying. But in Uganda, we do not know when the Madam First President is going to make up her mind and say, I think let these poor people's students go back to school. Let me first open a dormitory where I don't think it's even going to be used for the next 7 months. I think schools are opening in May, sometime next year. So, which is kind of really really, it is not a good thing anyways. So that is what it is. Anyways, things will get better. We're very optimistic. Things will get better. Things are not meant to stay that way. Like with the right people and right everything, things will happen and things will be better. So without any further ado, or without no more, I think 6 minutes, that's kind of enough for as we wait and as we have a chit chat. Yeah, what have I done? Today's been a very beautiful weekend. Went for a big drive. I love drives, and so it's one way of calming me down, reflect on the week I've had and reflect on the week ahead, what have been I assess my goals. I do that kind of personal assessment. What can I do better for the next week in terms of work, in terms of home, and that kind of thing. So every now and then I do that every weekend and try to see what can be improved, what can I do more, where have I failed, what have I, all that kind of thing, like personal kind of something. That's something I do for myself. So I went for a good drive with my son in the car, and yeah, we had very good good chat, spotting a few things around, and yeah, it has been good. So I think we should now get into So the weather has a mind of its own today. It's been, beautiful sun. Now it's beginning to rain. That's kind of interesting. Anyway, today's episode is the rule of law. Last Sunday in the Democracy series or episode, we discussed the core principles of democracy. And the rule of law is a very core principle of any functioning democracy. As closely associated with the doctrine of separation of powers is the theory of the rule of law, which doctrine I will explain very much later in the episode. The rule of law is not a rule in a sense that it binds anyone, but rather the rule of law is a collection of ideas and principles in a free society, in free societies or democracies, to guide lawmakers, administrators, judges, and law enforcement agencies. The rule of law is a feature, a very key feature of a democracy and a country's legal system. That is, if a country is democratic, the rule of law has to be there, no question. The rule of law is the principle that both the government and the citizens know the law and are ruled by it. So you know what the law is as a citizen, and you are ruled by, this kind of law. This means that law applies to everyone regardless of their position or status. To make sure everyone knows the law and their rights, laws should be easy to understand, they should be easy to find, and they should be enforced. So we don't have to keep referring to people. If there was rule of law, like go and read the Constitution, or go and read this act, or go and read this legislation. Everything has to be understood or easy to find by everyone if there is the rule of law. So what are the elements of the rule of law? Although there is a broad definition of the rule of law, there is debate about what else includes. Some parts of functioning democracies, legal systems that are generally considered to be part of the rule of law are, so there are about 5, so which include element number 1 being citizens cannot be found guilty of an offense that wasn't law when they committed that act. For example, if I took or I stole your pen, when stealing is not, a crime, there's no way after me stealing your pen, they can say now you committed a crime because that wasn't the law. So everyone is innocent until proven guilty. The presumption of innocence is present in a fair and public trial. Under the rule of law, citizens cannot be punished or their rights affected unless a court has decided a law has been broken. There is nowhere where there will be, where there is mob justice in Uganda, where the police is beating you up before even the court has said you have committed a crime. If there was rule of law, that would not happen. Under the rule of law, the government can be challenged about its actions by the media and the citizens and through courts. So you can sue the government the hell out of it for their wrongdoing. Under the rule of law, all citizens are given natural justice. This is referred to as procedural fairness, which simply means acting fairly in administrative decision making. As an important part of the rule of law is reviewing, updating, and removing laws to make sure they are fair and reflect social values. So laws which don't work for a country can be scrapped off with laws which work for the country. Then, here comes the question: why is the rule of law so important for a society? A country that adheres to the rule of law ensures that in a country with the rule of law, all persons and organizations, including the government, are subject to the law and accountable to the law. A country that adheres to the rule of law ensures that the law is clear, known, and enforced, that the court system is independent and resolves disputes in a fair and public manner. So there is no going at the back when in the court. There's no handing out bags of money to judges. So everything is in the open how cases are solved. So all persons are presumed innocent until proven otherwise by court. Where there is rule of law, no person shall be arbitrarily arrested, can be imprisoned or deprived of their property. So punishment must be determined by a court and be appropriated to the offense. So you can't say you stole a chicken and you're charged of murder. So that's how the rule of law works. As a result, it can be said that the rule of law is more than simply the government and the citizens knowing and obeying the law. So it is more to that. The rule of law involves other concepts such as checks and balances on the use of government power, the independence of the judiciary, the presumption of innocence, access to justice, and the right to a fair trial. What is Uganda's fate on the rule of law? Do we even have one in Uganda? My answer is no, we do not. So since Uganda's independence, the rule of law began to suffocate. The judiciary permanently experienced erosion of its independence, and thereafter, 1986, the situation did not change to the better up to the present. The situation has just deteriorated. Uganda celebrates its 59th independence today, rather on the 10th of October, and literally it means that for the past 59 years, the rule of law has been suffocated. That's very, very sad. The fusion of powers, the interference and erosion has not only been orchestrated by the executive and the legislature, but also by individuals and other factors on the other hand. For instance, the removal, the remuneration of judges and other judicial officers, or the interference in the judiciary's independence by way of bribing judges, bribing court officials, asking many things. This has created a corrupt atmosphere with the judicial system, which endangers the concepts of the rule of law. We all know the courts is a no-go area where people are like, I'm not even going to get justice. I do not have even the money to bribe the judges. This is the fate of Uganda, exactly. The rule of law cannot thrive in any society or in any government without the separation of powers. So, what do we mean by the separation of powers? This simply means that the powers of the organs of the state or the government must be clearly described in the Constitution, and these powers must be exercised by the different persons as laid down in the Constitution. So, the three organs of the state, or say the government, are provided for in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Number one being the executive, which puts the law into action, and this includes the president and his cabinet ministers. Then we have the legislature, which makes the laws, and this includes the parliament. And then we have the judiciary, which makes judgments about the law. Here we have the courts, the judges, and so on. In the separation of powers, there is independence of the judiciary. In Uganda, this notion is rooted under Article 128, Part 1 of the 1995 Constitution. This article provides that in the exercise of judicial powers, the court shall be independent and shall not be subject to the control or direction of anyone or any authority. But in Uganda, the president interferes in everything. One former Chief Justice, for example, former Chief Justice Benjamin Odoki asserted that the independence of the judiciary is a very, very big requisite of a free society under the rule of law, where independence here implies from freedom of interference by the executive or the legislature in exercising of its judicial functions. These provisions are based on the critical role played by the judiciary towards the socio-economic and political affairs of any democratic country or system. The provisions, or should I say, these checks and balances were therefore adopted to ensure quality and fairness in the three arms of government, including the judiciary, as well as equal rights protection for all. This thus makes an independent judiciary a central pillar for democratic government. Unfortunately, and this is very, very sad, the notion of a very, very independent judiciary with all the adoption of provisions in the Constitution is non-existent in Uganda. There is continued intrusion of the executive in the duties of the judiciary, as was during the reviewed period. For example, instances of intrusions including the following in an example clearly shows the continued undermining of independence of the judiciary. There was an order, I think from memory, that was made by the President of Uganda, directing the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution to deny bail to the State Minister Minister of Labour, Mwesigwa Lukutana, despite the fact that such is the mandate of the judiciary. It is only the judiciary which awards bail to anybody, not the president. Pursuant to the Constitution, it is only the judiciary that gives or denies bail to anybody, not the president, not anyone else. Shockingly, the request to deny this minister bail occurred during the inauguration ceremony of the current Chief Justice as well as the Deputy Chief Justice, respectively, at the State House in Tebe on September 8th, 2020. So, inauguration and the president is interfering and nobody's even saying anything. There we are with the Chief Justice obliged to uphold the law, but still the president is completely ignoring everything, rendering them powerless, and he gives orders to deny people bail in their presence and nothing is said. In a functioning democracy, judges are independent for execution of their judicial duties, and sentences of court may not be or nullified by other organs or authorities. In Uganda, there is undermining of the mandate of the judiciary and the rule of law. Another clear example is continued gross of human rights violation. When we talk about human rights in Uganda, I feel like they even know human rights, we will say. Like where powers of the police force to prohibit and disperse political gatherings have been withdrawn by court in one case, I can't quite remember off my head, limiting their powers to preserving laws and limiting their powers under Section 9 of the Public Management Act. But the court said you should stop doing this, killing people, beating them, blah, 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 blah. But still, the police still up to date continues to obstruct people who are doing demonstrations, who are, doing peaceful protests, as due to this process concerning peaceful protest has been perpetually disregarded, thus leading to a continual breakage in the rule of law. So the court says this, police does this. So where is the rule of law? With all these provisions, the police has continued to shoot, like literally shooting people, killing innocent civilians, continue to arrest peaceful protesters, etc. and etc. All these actions by the police continue and will continue to undermine the rule of law. So where there is rule of law, this is about to happen. So as I conclude today, the Ugandan Law Society is an independent agency that provides recommendations for law reform to the government of Uganda, or to the Ugandan government. For the rule of law to exist, law should be sovereign or overall authority. It has to be clear and certain in its content and accessible and predicted for the law subject, and the law should be general in its application. There should be an independent judiciary, without which the rule of law will be impossible. And finally, so if there's no independent judiciary, this makes everything, we just say things which we are talking about. So where we're seeing the president is standing up to say, do not grant this person bail. And then recently, even where the president's coming out to pass, they're trying to pass the bail law, where you are denied bail if you have committed an offense or something like that. So who is the president, where the president is the one directing everything? So this really undermines the rule of law. So we have societies like independent bodies which are making recommendations and reports to the about the nature of the rule of law and all the kind of things, for example, Ugandan Law Society. But still, to me, when I was reading their reports, I'm like, yes, this is done, but still nothing is really, you've written all these beautiful reports, beautiful recommendations, but what can we do to see that whatever is recommended is really put into enforcement, where you have recommended for the police to stop the brutal arrests, to stop the violation of human rights and that kind of thing, but still the police is still doing exactly the opposite. What can we do as a nation? What can we do as a society? We are having the parliament, which is supposed to make and amend laws, which is now dancing on the tune, or I should say the tune of just the one person who is the president. So literally speaking, there is no rule of law in Uganda. These are things we are seeing on paper. So when we're just reading on paper but not in practice, it feels like everything feels, or rather reads merry on a piece of paper, that yes, there is rule of law, yes, we have the judiciary, yes, we have the parliament, and then we have the legislature. But still, all these are in the palm of just the one person who directs who is going to be the Chief Justice, who directs who is going to be the magistrate, all those kind of things. So like as a lawyer and someone who is practicing in countries where the rule of law is upheld, it is really disheartening that this is happening to our beautiful motherland. But without losing so much hope, or without losing hope, I should say, I know one might say it's been 59 years of where the rule of law has been suffocated, but there is still hope. The good thing is we are still young people who are very passionate, who have that country spirit. We have that zealiness, we have that Ugandanness in us, that we might be far away, 1,000 miles away from home, but we have that Ugandan in us, that maybe we will build our nation from what would be left over, or what will be left by the time these people go. But for now, I think I should stop talking, otherwise I may be talking for the next 30 minutes or so, and I don't want to take so much of your time. Anyways, Thank you for chilling with me this Sunday afternoon or Sunday night your side or Sunday morning. I hope to see you again next weekend. For now, stay safe, keep well, and I'll be chatting to you again. I'll be here on your screen again next Sunday. For now, my name is Hanifa once again. Have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening from wherever you have been watching us from. Good night. Ciao.